So your boy just got back from like a 2.5 week trip in India. Now, for those that don't know, I live in Australia and I've done a lot of travel, like a decent amount of travel. I've been to 30 countries and India was my 30th. And I'm here to tell you what I learned as a creative traveling India because it's a fair bit. I'm just going to adjust this slide a little bit. Hey creators, Aimon here. This is where I help creators go full time. And let me tell you, traveling India as a creative was shocking because I had a lot of realizations about what it means to be creative and how to get out of your own head as a creative. And for a little bit of context, the conditions there for most people, maybe not most people, but a lot of people, they're not pretty. It's a lot of poverty, a lot of people living on the streets, a lot of people living on barely anything, a lot of people earning maybe 10 Australian dollars per day, a lot of people hustling really, really hard to just make it through the day. And when you go there, the aura, the energy, it's very clear that people aren't focused on what people are focused on in the West. And it's brutal. And in the West, especially as creatives, I find we're caught up in our own heads. This is a uniquely Australian thing, I believe. Maybe, at least from what I've witnessed culturally, Americans, they don't have this condition into them. So if you're American and you have thoughts on this, feel free to let me know. I would love to know more what your experience is about this. But as an Australian and as a self-identified introvert, and someone that, maybe necessarily didn't have too much of a really good, like, structured leadership in place in terms of society, I don't feel as though I have a lot of confidence, at least initially, built into me as a creative. So we spend a lot of time in our head, a lot of time thinking about ourselves, thinking about how we're being perceived. And if you identify with this as a creative, I'm not surprised, because this kind of comes with being a creative. Not being able to express your thoughts exactly how you want. This lighting, it's not that good, but we're going to deal with it moving forward. And so the first thing that I realized is that you don't owe anyone anything, and this became very clear to me quite quickly over there because a lot of people, like, the energy around you is that people see the color of your skin, for example, to be brutal here. And they see that maybe you're from a different country. Maybe you have things that they don't have. And the energy is that people want something from you. And it's kind of devastating, really. But I understand it. I have a lot of empathy and compassion for the people that give off that energy because it's very clear that they have less than you and they want some of what you have. And so they will do whatever they can. They'll try and scam you. They'll try and talk to you. They will just, the way they look at you, it's as if they want something from you, and they will do some crazy things to get it from you. The amount of times we almost got scammed, the amount of times we did get scammed, through the roof. The amount of attempts people made on us to scam us, possibly in the hundreds, and we were there for 2.5 weeks. So it's crazy. And it makes you really realize that nobody owes you anything because, maybe you were born into a particular country in particular circumstances. Maybe you can afford a camera, maybe you can create content. And the amount of gratitude that I found within that is insane because, I had gratitude before. I'm very lucky to be living the life that I live, especially all the travel that I've done has given me a lot of gratitude. But this gave me gratitude like nothing else, really, because people, they're just chilling on the streets and you walk past and this is clearly their day to day. They just wake up, they sit on a tuk-tuk all day, maybe get 1 or 2 rides, maybe get enough for their family, maybe get enough to, I don't even know, but it's not much, right? And this leads me into the kind of second thing that I realized is that you just don't matter as much as you think you do. And this is really impactful for me because, again, we spend a lot of time as creatives in our own heads. We spend a lot of time thinking about how we're being perceived. We We spend a lot of time thinking about what we want to be, our dreams. And, that's fantastic, but it's a very amazing opportunity that we have to even be able to consider these things. And the fact that I get to pick up a camera, use a camera all day, every day, get paid a decent wage to do it. And then when I come home, I get to make music in my studio that belongs to me. And then, I've got my camera, I've got all my Sony lenses that I want. I'm able to make YouTube videos. Rather than spending so much time as a creative being like, who do I want to be? And how am I going to be perceived? Just pick up a camera and create, because none of that matters. Nobody is thinking about who you think you want to be or who you're going to be. It's only solely in your head. And the obsession with that is actually unproductive. Because you see, again, people in the streets in India, they just live in their lives and they're living moment to moment. They're not thinking about how you perceive them as a human being. They're not thinking about what they want to become. They're just in that moment, present. And there's something phenomenal about that and amazing about that. And maybe they're in that situation because of their life circumstances. Maybe they're in that situation because of their philosophy. I'm not in their head. I couldn't tell you. But just from what I perceived, my judgment of the situation, it's pretty clear that just life is not valued as much over there. It's not valued as highly as we believe it to be in the West. And this is really empowering, because if you can realize that you don't matter as much as you think you do, if you can get out of your own head as a creative, as, a person from the West, especially if you're from Australia. Again, this is just like a theory I'm kind of cultivating with friends, that it's a typically Australian thing that, often I find myself, and again, I'm kind of a creative and identify as introspective and an introvert, right? That oftentimes I find myself in a situation with a person, having an experience with them, talking to them, and halfway through the experience, I catch myself the whole time, I'm just thinking about me, thinking about how I'm being perceived. And that's so unproductive and actually kind of cringe when you think about it. This is why meditation's really good, because it allows you to see these things, right? And now how is all this relative to being a creative? Well, again, if you realize that you don't owe anyone anything, nobody really cares who you are, what you do. You're going to die, and your life is just not valued as much as you think it is. You potentially think, used to think more so that my life is just the most important thing in the world, and I am, just the ego has its own self-importance. If you can just forget all of that for a moment, for a day, for a week, constantly, and just create without any expectations for the outcome, without any expectations for what you will get out of it, for who you will become at the end of it, for how people will perceive you. Just forget all of that and just create. I just find it to be so much more powerful, because literally none of it matters. We're just making up all these stories in our head, and maybe go to India, maybe go to another country, and it will give you these realizations, these ideas that, just none of this matters really as a creative. And you're kind of in this curse of thinking about yourself, thinking about all these different things, and it cripples you because you stop actually doing the things you want to do. And you get caught up in all these things and wanting more things. This is another cancer of the West, especially as a creative. More often than not, I find creatives were dopamine driven, maybe a little bit ADHD in there. So we're always chasing different things. We hyperfixate on different things. But if we can have the discipline to not hyperfixate on getting new things, because obviously getting things is exciting, but having things isn't really exciting. And instead we put all of that energy, it's hard, it's very hard, don't get me wrong, into just creating, just focusing on creating something of value for you, and maybe it will be of value for other people. There's just so much more value in that, and you're going to get so much more. For me, I'll talk about myself. I feel like I get so much more value out of creating over consuming, and getting out of my own head, focusing on just doing the thing. For example, this is the 4th video that I've shot today. If I was sitting here being like, how am I going to be perceived on camera? What are people going to think of me? Oh, I don't really want to do this. I'm going to scroll on TikTok. Forget all of that stuff. Maybe I want to look up a new car that I want to buy. And don't get me wrong. The reason I'm saying this satirically is because these are things that I suffer from, right? But just what going to India taught me as a creative is just that none of this matters. We're literally all going to die. So just create, man. Or girl, or whoever you are. I don't care. The point is, just create stuff and do it today, because you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring you. And the more you create today, the more you're going to create tomorrow. And that's literally all that matters, because you're going to get fulfillment out of the moment that you create. And everything on top of that, all the thoughts, all the feelings, everything, it's all nonsense. Let it all fade away and just create. I don't know. That's what India taught me as a creative. Hopefully you got some value out of this. If you've done some travel yourself, feel free to let me know your story and experience with that as well. Anything else that I've kind of missed about this topic, I'd love to know your thoughts. So let me know in the description below. If you want some courses that are going to help you level up your creative game and make you go full-time as a creative, feel free to check out the link in my bio. They're super cheap, heaps of good value in there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.